Hey all, hello and welcome, Tony Bing here. So it's been quite some time since I last had the opportunity to do a test centre preview video for a new hero, but it's awesome to have the chance to do that again. And we've got Carnage. I've had a quick look at him. From what I've seen, he looks very impressive so far. A far cry from the last hero we had, Nick Fury. That was really quite bare bones unfortunately, but there appears to be quite a lot to Carnage. His visuals look great. His voiceover has been tweaked and sounds much better, but he still sounds pretty manic, but it's not too great. And so yeah, really impressed with what I've seen so far. Now if you've never seen this style of video from me before, what I'll do is check out both the skill trees, and in this instance Carnage has a Bloodlust and Organic Weapon skill tree. What we do is we look at the tooltips for the skills. I'll then fire off all the skills so you can see the animations. Once we've done that, we have a quick look at the talents and traits, and then we'll have a look at the synergy, and finishing up we check out the ultimate as well. So first up here, let's have a look at the Bloodlust tree. So the first skill we look at here is actually great straight away. This is his main basics spender. It's called Slaying Swipes. Now with this one, it's got a very unique mechanic which I really like. And the way it works is you have other skills that have damage tags such as claw, axe, knife. It says force, but that's from console and it should be mace. So you've got claw, axe, knife and mace. Now if you use one of these skills and then follow up with the spender, what the spender does is actually changed. So if you use a claw skill, you've then got health regen, knife is critical hit chance, axe provides a bleed which works as a grievous wound, and then finally we have mace. It says force, but as we know it's mace. That would give you a chance to stun the targets. That's a great mechanic, and that's your animation changes, and we will show that off, so I really like that straight away. We then have his dash, which is Vicious Lunge. It's got a low 2.5 second cooldown and 6 charges, so it looks like he's really going to be quite mobile, which is fantastic as well. Next up we have Ravenous Claw. So this one's a dash to target cooldown skill. You regenerate health with this, 6 second cooldown. We then have Pure Carnage, which is a melee area attack. This will regenerate health and also weaken the enemy. Next up we have Ruthless Weapon. So you fire some weapon out. This immobilises enemy for 3 seconds and it makes them vulnerable. It's got an 8 second cooldown, which is not too bad considering you've got the 3 second immobilise on it, so that makes up for it. We then have an attack which we're used to by now, and we've seen this on a lot of heroes such as She-Hulk and Luke Cage, but it's a nice attack on him. It's Slice and Dice, so you'll do various different attacks, 6 hits in total, and it regenerates 350 health per hit there, 10 second cooldown. Finally we have the signature, which is Reaping Time, so it's tagged as area and melee. You have the initial damage packet, you'll actually spin around and hit as well. You regenerate health and you gain 60% damage resistance. It's got a high cooldown of 40 seconds, but it is a really nice signature and it does a lot of damage. So what we'll actually do now is we'll show off each of these actual skills so you can see the animation. Once that's done, we'll then move on to the Organic Weapons tree. We'll have a look at the animation of the main spender first. This is the one that's changed depending on the last skill you use. Now I won't show the 4 variations, the one I'll show off would be the mace, and it actually looks really quite awesome. There we go. You can see that there, that's really pretty nice. We then have the dash, so I'll dash around and come back to where I am. Doesn't have a huge amount of range on it, and I've got a feeling that will be changed, but you've got the 6 charges and a low cooldown, so that's really nice. The next skill we have is Ravenous Claw, and this is the dash to target. There we go there, we can see we jump to the target. We then have Pure Carnage. I'll move closer before I fire this one off. We follow up with Ruthless Weapon. I'll move back again. And I completely pressed the wrong button there. Apologies for that, it's going to happen going through all these skills. Let's try that one more time. Ruthless Weapon. Hit number 4 here now. There we go. There it is there. And then we have the barrage style attack, which is Slice and Dice. And then finally we'll finish up with the signature here, which is Reaping Time. That's a really pretty nice signature, I do like that. So what we'll do now is we'll have a look at the next tree. So this tree here then, not surprisingly, is all the weapons you can create, and it's got an interesting mechanic in that just about all these skills when you use them will actually bring your health down, so they have a health cost associated with them. However, we also have something called symbiotic protection, which you can see here, the red writing on the tooltip, and that balances that out, and it certainly gives a lot to playing them and a lot of different options. Now, skill wise anyway, the first one we look at is axe sweep, so you'll have all the different tags as mentioned already, like axe, mace, knife and so on, but we have axe sweep, so this one will slow the enemy, slows them for 4 seconds, costs you health, you generate symbiotic protection, and you'll notice that with all of these skills you look at, they do that. And the axe skills actually give you a bleed dot as well. The multiple sources of the bleed dot will not stack, just to bear that in mind. We then have mauling mace, so with this one it will knock down the enemy. Again, it's costing you health, but it's generating symbiotic protection, 8-second cooldown. We then have bloody blender. So with this one you've got a 10% critical hit chance, and that's the same for all the knife skills, and again you've got the health cost symbiotic protection as well. Then have to the point, another knife skill, so same as the last one, it's got a 10% critical hit chance, acts as a vortex. When we show it off, because the target dummy is static, we won't be able to pull it, but otherwise it would pull enemies to you. We then have an axe skill, which is axe throw. You throw out the axe. If you've got the Carnage team up, you'll be used to this particular skill here, and again it has the grievous wound on it there. We then have Southern Slam, which is another axe attack. You'll jump up and slam down with the axe, and it looks pretty great. 8-second cooldown. Next up we have Blade Barrage, so he throws out lots of knives, and this is a bit like the Spidey attack where he throws out all the webbing in a short cone. It works as a dot and it's got the critical hit chance on it. And then finally we have Psychotic Smash Ups. This is a mace attack, and you can see that again as a mace attack it's got the knockdown on it. So you've got the options of knockdown, you can have critical hit chance, or you can have the bleeds as well on that skill, so that's really quite interesting there. But what we'll do is we'll actually show off all these skills now, and then once we've done that we'll have a look at the talents and traits. The first skill we'll look at here then will be the axe sweep. There we go, that really does look pretty nice, and you can see the bleed on it as well. We then have mauling mace. So it looks like it's quite a few moves that allow you to dash to targets to get close to them, so that's nice. Next up we have bloody blender. As you see, you can spam that, so you could use that as a trash clearer there. Then we have to the point. As mentioned already, if you weren't fighting that show target dummy, it would pull the enemies towards you. It does say in the tooltips that it works as a vortex skill. Next up we have axe throw. We then have Southern Slam. And then we have Blade Barrage, that attack that's like Spidey's one. And finishing up the skills we have Psychotic Smash Up. There we go. So what I'll actually do, this is something I normally forget in these videos, is always forget to show off the synergies, and some occasions I forget to show off the ultimate as well, which is the one you really want to see. So I'll bring that up just now so you can see the synergies. So for Carnage we have, it's at level 25 health on any hit, and also at level 50 you get health on any hit as well. Now let's fire off this actual ultimate, but I'll show you what the ultimate tooltip is. It's maximum carnage, so you'll be doing your damage here, you're invulnerable while you're doing it, channels for 6 seconds, and you also gain a buff which gives you a great visual effect as well as extra damage, health and attack speed after you fire it off. Now if you use it against multiple targets, which I won't be doing here, it will hit them all on the screen, but we'll do it against the one dummy here. There we go, if you zoom in you can see the amazing visuals now for that. That really does look pretty awesome. But what we'll do now is we'll actually check out the talents and traits. So what we'll do before we look at the actual talents, we'll quickly check out his traits and also his resource. Now I've had a quick look at the talents. There's a lot to him. He's the most complicated character I've seen in quite some time, so I've not had a huge amount of time to play around with him, so by and large I will just be reading out the tooltips and then you guys can make your observations from what you actually see and see if you come up with any ideas from it. But if we look at the traits, the offensive trait is Red Slayer, so with this you have base damage of 1% of your bonus health, so that's new, I've not seen that one before, and has two attributes of durability and strength. Defensive trait wise we have Symbiotic Bond, so it's health on hit, he gains a multiplier to both defense and dodge, and he's got the 8% damage reduction. For his primary resource, this is called Symbiotic Protection, so with this Symbiotic Protection negates 60% of all incoming damage and absorbs the rest. That's a huge amount if you've got that, and powers that cost health generate Symbiotic Protection, so it's a really interesting mechanic there. You sacrifice health to give you damage mitigation, so I'll be intrigued to see what people are able to do with that. But if we look at the talents, start off with the first line, which is Savage Rebirth, so this will provide you with extra Symbiotic Protection, 20% maximum health, and you also regenerate health, and Symbiotic Protection is buffed and it absorbs an additional 5% of incoming damage. We then have Cautious Carnage, so powers that spend health cost 50% less health to activate and generate 50% less Symbiotic Protection, and you gain a 15% damage buff to axe, mace and knife skills. Next up we have No Pain, No Rain, so Symbiotic Protection no longer absorbs incoming damage when you use Pure Carnage, which is the skill over here, and we'll jump back to the tooltip. When you use that you transfer your Symbiotic Protection back into health. If you transfer more than 75% of your max Symbiotic Protection you gain Symbiotic Armor, and that will give you bonus damage, you absorb damage, healing from all sources goes up, and you can get 3 stacks of that. It's really interesting. The amount in his tooltips for his talents is crazy. There's a whole lot amount to them, which is great. I can't wait to really get a lot of time and dig around and see what options there are. But talent line 2 anyway, we start off with Meat Grinder, so knife power damage goes up by 10%, Bloody Blender damage goes up by 200%, gains a 6-second cooldown. When you activate it you reduce the cooldown of To The Point by 50 seconds, then activating To The Point reduces the cooldown of Bloody Blender by 50 seconds, so you'll be alternating those two skills. We then have Mind Bomb, so Ruthless Weapon, which was this particular one here. Now that will confuse enemies for a long duration, doesn't mobilise them, and it gains a 4-second cooldown on top of the already, I think it was 6 seconds, so take it up to 10 in total. We then have Rampage, so this one buffs axe power damage. Now you restore 40% of max Symbiotic Protection and gain Rampage when you activate Southern Slam, and also you gain a buff effect Rampage which ups your critical hit chance by 5%, and you regenerate 2% health when you defeat an enemy there. Let's see, next up then, talent line 3, we have Mutilate and Mend, so this one will buff claw power damage, increases claw power healing by 50%, and Ravenous Claw gains 3 max charges. When you hit with Ravenous Claw you reduce the cooldown of Slice and Dice here. So the way it looks like it's set up is you have buffs to your claw, your knife or your axe skills, and then from there you can get additional bonuses the way, because there does appear to be 2 of each of those skills, they can synergize with each other if you use them, alternating them. But the next talent we have is Water Rush, so you gain an adrenaline rush meter. We'll activate that, and you can see the rush meter down there, it goes up to 50 in this instance. Now with this you gain 3 stacks of adrenaline rush when you hit with a health spending power while already at maximum Symbiotic Protection. Adrenaline rush stacks decay if one is not gained within 5 seconds, and the buff you gain from this is base damage, movement speed, and it goes up to 50 stacks. So 50% base damage, 50% movement speed you could have there, which would really be interesting and give them certainly a very mobile playstyle. We then have Deadly at any distance, so this one will buff knife power damage by 10%. Blade Barrage gains 30% versus bleeding enemies. Axe throws projectile bursts into shards upon impact, stunning all enemies, and to the point no longer pulls enemies to you and is considered a ranged power. So it looks like we've got a range build on top of the melee and potentially even a movement one there. Talent line 4, we have Crushing Blows, so mace power damage goes up by 10%. Mace powers have 1 extra charge, and when you use a mace power, restore 10% of your max symbiotic protection. Then have Carnage Rules, so when you defeat an enemy while channeling Reaping Time, reduce its cooldown by 1 second, so that was your signature, up to a maximum of 10 seconds. For 14 seconds after activating it, Slaying Swipes will use blade arm weapons which hit twice per attack and gain the benefits of all other weapons. I'm laughing here because there is just so much to these tooltips. It really is incredible. If you compare it to, again, going back to the previous hero, which was Nick, I was going to say Nick Cage there, of course it's not Nick Cage, Nick Fury, then the difference really is night and day. It looks like when they've got a lot of time to actually develop a hero, the difference is great. It really is. I'm very impressed here. But the next talent we have is Timber. So axe power damage goes up by 10%, axe sweep damage 125%, axe sweep damage is 125% versus vulnerable, and it gains a 6-second cooldown. And talent line 5, which I'm glad we're on to because my voice is starting to go here, you've got Get Your Hands Dirty. So claw power damage goes up by 10%, gain an adrenaline rush meter. You gain a stack of adrenaline rush when you heal from a claw power or Reaping Time while already at maximum health. Adrenaline rush stacks decay if one is not gained within 5 seconds. There's so much to take in here, it really is. And buff effect adrenaline rush is 1% base damage, 1% movement speed, and you get the 50 stacks on it as well there. That does look like a duplicate of that there, so that's interesting. Could be they've still got to actually change that one there. They're a bit too similar. But the next one we have anyway, it's Hit and Run. So movement power damage goes up by 10%. You get another charge on Vicious Lunge, bringing you up to 7 in total. And when you activate Vicious Lunge, reduce the cooldown of all other movement powers by 1 second. So we definitely have melee, ranged and movement builds. And finally we have the Tenderizer. So mace power damage goes up by 10%. Mace power brutal strike chance goes up by 10%. Slice and Dice transforms into Smash and Bash. Smash and Bash is it says force, but it'll be mace power, deals more damage and spends health instead of restoring it. And that's as done. So that really is, it's genuinely incredible the amount that seems to be actually within the character. There's a whole lot of options. There's so many that I feel a bit overwhelmed even just talking through them there. So I hope this was useful. If you've got any questions or there is anything you would like for me to actually check and you don't have access to the test centre, do let me know and I'm happy to hop back in and double check for you. If I get enough time and the next day and test centre's still up, I'll try and see if I can throw a quick build together and run through a terminal just so we can see what he looks like actually in action against enemies. But thanks for tuning in for this, and I'll see you all again soon.